Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely, Eure, joined by Shotgun Spratling, and we have a special guest in the studio today, three-time All-American and former USC safety, Taylor Mays, who looks distracted, both of you, right now. Welcome to the show, Taylor. We're glad to have you back.
What's going on, Keely?
Shotgun, glad to have you back as well.
Oh, okay. Well, I made it back from Notre Dame. Keely and I have had a long trip.
It's been a long 24 hours for Shotgun and I. But we're going to talk about the game that we covered. USC loses to number 9 Notre Dame, 30-27. A close game after all, not what we predicted. So
I actually predicted.
You predicted USC was going to win, so don't even.
I predicted a 4-point loss, so I feel like I'm pretty on point there. Thank you.
Okay. But it wasn't completely correct, though. We'll say that. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Clay Helton's Sunday night conference call, some news out of that, especially about running back Vavae Malepeai. So we'll get to that. And we'll talk about where USC stands right now. 6 games in, 3-3. Clay Helton says that they still control their destiny. They're going to have the shot at the Pac-12. He actually said last night that they're going to go to a Pac-12 title if they play like they did last night against Notre Dame. We'll get your thoughts on that, Taylor. I feel like you'll have some thoughts about that. But of course, you can call in 512-4-TUNNEL. Free therapy, as I always say. You can call in with your questions, comments, concerns. If you want to talk to one of us or ask Taylor a specific question, you can do that. You can also, wherever you're watching, I believe we are live on all 3 platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope. Put your comments, questions, and concerns, and we'll answer them, put them on the screen. And finally, you can tweet at us as well, #TunnelVision, and I will put your tweet up on the screen. But guys, where do you want to start? USC put up a good fight. Clay Helton said it was a tale of 2 halves. Basically, USC's offense wasn't very explosive, couldn't capitalize in the red zone in the first half, then got it together in the second half, and he said it was essentially the opposite for USC's defense. He said he thought they were kind of strong in the first quarter and a half, and then it kind of trailed off there in the second half for USC's defense. But I guess overall thoughts, what did you take away from Saturday night's loss?
Go ahead. Go first. Well, I came in here hot. You guys don't know this, but I came in here really upset. I felt some type of way about the game yesterday. And I know I said that I thought USC would win this game in South Bend. We just have a history of being able to, sometimes we play well, sometimes we struggle. And I don't think that was a bad prediction. I think yesterday, each game, especially a rivalry game, a big game, it comes down to like one big situation. And that situation for us was after Keaton threw the touchdown to Tyler Vaughn, that was the key time for this defense to say, hey, we got to step up. We got to get a stop. Our offense was doing pretty well. I was proud of how the offense and Keaton played in the fourth quarter. But that was the time for the defense to play well, to step up, to get the ball back for the offense, and we didn't do it. So to say, and Coach Helton saying that that's the type of performance that will win us the Pac, well, I don't know about that. I thought that, hey, we had a chance to win this game. You have to step up at key times. You need your best players to play well at key times. And I think for me, the most disappointing part about that fourth quarter was they ran the ball directly at us, and we got punched in the face. We got punched in the mouth. Whatever is the most disrespectful football-related thing that could happen happened to us in that fourth quarter. They ran the ball directly at us. We weren't physical. We looked soft. We looked beat down. They just ran at us and beat us. And that's really what I was frustrated about in that fourth quarter, because if you're going to be anything as a football team, you have to be physical and you have to tackle. That's all I care about as a defense and as a football team, and we didn't do that. And if we would have did that, we would have had a chance to win this game and get the ball back for our offense. So that's why I was really upset yesterday, today, tomorrow, and going forward.
Honestly, I don't think they would have had a chance. They would have won. The offense was rolling. You see even the 2-minute drill.
Yeah.
And when Notre Dame knows you're throwing the ball,
Yeah.
They're dropping guys back,
Yeah.
trying to force you to throw it, and having guys in coverage. And Keaton did a great job.
Yeah.
He never forced the ball.
Yeah.
The one throw where he steps up in the middle and then zips it to Tyler Vaughns, that's an advanced level throw right there. Some steam coming on that one, some steam coming off Taylor right now. We're gonna fan him off over here.
Really upset.
But yeah, I think if they get a third down stop on that drive, I think that USC probably wins the game.
I think so
because the way that they did all the things that we've been looking and seeing. Can this team do?
Yeah.
Can they take care of the ball?
Yeah.
Can they not commit stupid penalties to get them in trouble?
Yeah.
Now they committed a couple of penalties that ended up affecting them.
Yeah.
The one big one, obviously, the roughing the passer. But what
that
roughing the passer was that? I mean, that's a very that's kind of a ticky-tack call.
That was a tough one.
And you listen to the broadcast. I rewatched the game today. You listen to the broadcast, and they're like, "That's not a." Their NFL official who's done 3 Super Bowls. They're touting in there. He's like, "That's not a roughing the passer."
So no, that was tough just because, and you really said it. We might have won that. We would have won that game if we would have gotten the ball back for our offense. And, you can make mistakes in the first quarter, in the second quarter, in the third quarter, but there comes a time in every game where you have to step up and you have to make the plays that you need to make, and you have to rely on the players, your best players, to really step up. You have to rely on your leaders. You have to rely on your captains, especially your captains on defense, and say, hey, get your guys together on the sideline. We have to go out there. We got to get the ball back for our offense. We have to step up. We need somebody to step up and make a play for this team, for this defense, and, really make a statement for the type of team that we're going to be this season. And we didn't do it. And we lost that game at the end in the worst way possible because they ran the ball directly at us and we backed down from the challenge. That's what was most disappointing to me.
And on that drive, you got to give I talked to Chad K last night, and he was very upset.
Yeah.
I can't remember his exact words. I'll look it up in a second, but he said it was just bad that they gave up that drive.
Yeah.
But he also told me that Notre Dame did a really good job of keeping USC from subbing.
Yeah.
So especially after they passed the 50-yard line, maybe the 40-yard line, if you go back and watch, almost everything was run towards their sideline. So the ball was kept on the left hash, away from USC's bench, so they couldn't sub. So a guy like Marlon Tuipulotu was not in there for an extended period of that. Now Drake Jackson limped off, and I saw him getting his thigh worked on. I think he may have come back later, and I know he came back in for the extra point, but he's out for an extended period.
Yeah.
Christian Rector was out for an extended. So your guys that you want to be making plays,
and we got out schemed. We got. They worked us right.
So
there.
They did a good job of that.
Did.
And also, you had Kanai Malga in there, Senapali and Natiote. You had a true freshman nickelback, Kalana Makaula, who's not played at all before. And I didn't think he played bad or anything. I thought that he did a good job in there. I mean, he missed one tackle earlier when he first was in there. But, he's not really attacking at that point. And that's kind of what you expect out of a true freshman.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make a mistake rather than trying to rush
he's just
up.
Trying to do his job rather than playing at a high level.
And so you needed one of your veterans. You needed a superstar play from Isaiah Polamau, Talanoa Hufanga, or John Houston.
Yeah.
Because you had all backups basically on the line for a lot of the drive on the defensive line. So you needed one of those 3 guys, I think, to step up and make a big play. And it didn't happen.
Yeah.
You look in the scramble, they got him a first down. I think it was 3rd and 10.
Yeah.
So John Houston kind of gets, he's a middle defender. I think it was 2-man, and he was kind of in the middle.
He was a whole player.
And so he kind of goes with the running back a little bit. It opens up things. And Chris Steele, again, he's a true freshman.
Yeah.
He's following his man, and that leaves a big open gap. So that you needed John Houston to step up and make a big play, and it just didn't happen then.
Well, I was John Houston, and I'll say it. John Houston was the player that I was disappointed in the most from the game. He's a senior. He wears a captain patch on his jersey. It's his responsibility to step up and to lead that defense. He made way too many mistakes on that last drive. Look, I understand. I make mistakes as a player, as a person. It happens. But in a situation like that, if you want to be a USC linebacker and you want to pay homage to the great linebackers that have played before you and the legacy of USC versus Notre Dame, we have to do better than that. And if you are a leader on defense, you have to play better than that. So we can't – that's not the standard that I think is acceptable at USC. I think he needs to go and really dig within – look deep within himself and dig deep and say, hey, this defense and this team expects more out of me. I need to do more for this defense and for this team. And he really needs to step up and do more in that game. I had the biggest problem with him. He made several mistakes just on the last drive alone. Obviously, you know, it's hard. He's not out there. He's out there with a couple backups in a couple different positions. But at the same time, that's just an excuse. There's still his responsibilities that he can take care of as a player, as a captain, and as a leader for this defense. And, you know, it's his job to really pull everybody together in a situation like that and bail us out of a situation like that. And it didn't happen. And that's what I was most upset about, because it was on the defense and we didn't let it happen. We didn't make it happen.
I guess from a coaching perspective, in regards to John Houston and maybe even Christian Rector, since he's not 100% health-wise, what are your real options, though? Jordan Iosefa is still out. You don't really have a lot of backups, especially at that defensive end spot. Shotgun, as far as depth chart goes, what are the real options there?
Well, obviously, Raylan Goforth is a guy they're really high on, and I think he's going to be a great player at USC eventually in his career, but he was not dressed last night. Mm-hmm. We didn't get a word on exactly why he wasn't dressed. And Britton Allen was another guy. Goforth and Max Williams were three guys that we thought were healthy going into the game, but were not dressed. We found out tonight that Max Williams was suspended for the game because of a violation of team rules. Which I guess it was a worse rule than Greg Johnson broke, because Greg Johnson had a quarter suspension against Washington, and he got a full game. So, you know, those guys weren't available, and that actually ended up impacting things because maybe you think Raylan Goforth is better against the run than Kanai. I don't know for sure if that's your thought process, and it's a different position, but maybe you want to make that switch. Maybe you want to get an extra linebacker in there. Yeah. You know, that's probably actually the thing that – maybe it is being overlooked. You know, Kanai will come in when on the short yardage situations,
downhill, physical,
and they usually run a three linebacker set. We'll call it 4-3 is kind of it's kind of a 4-3 over. They usually keep him on the end of the line, but they'll bring an extra linebacker in for short yardage or goal line situations. I don't know that they had that option last night. Because Goforth wasn't there. Iosefa, being out still and still probably a couple of weeks away, it looks like. Yeah. Having EA leave the game with a sprained ankle. Now, he came back in and tried to go. And, he made a tackle on the line. I think he actually – the roughing the passer call might have come after.
It was after, because it almost looked like he tried to kind of stop himself, like let up, but couldn't fully do it on that ankle. Yeah. So, I don't know.
I just remember seeing him after the roughing the passer, like banging his hands on the ground.
Yeah,
I was like, "Is that because he's in pain?" I
couldn't tell which.
Yeah.
I didn't,
because the flag hadn't been thrown. The flag hadn't even been thrown yet.
He couldn't have known that it was. Yeah. He couldn't have known it was a flag, so it looked like it was out of.
Well, the flag wasn't thrown for another like 3 seconds. It felt like it felt like the
felt
ball
long.
hit the ground. They're like, "Oh, incomplete. Oh, okay. Let's." It looks like a flag, I think.
Yeah, that was frustrating.
So they were kind of limited in their options there. Caleb Tremblay and Connor Murphy were playing. Yeah. They were not doing a great job of holding the edge at times. Chad K was pretty upset with them, being on the sideline with Connor in particular, and I think Caleb as well, with the entire group at times. He was very upset after the game about the way that they were gashed on those interior runs, because that's something USC has been so good at.
That was their strength coming into this game.
Throughout this season. Yeah. And Notre Dame, give them credit, they did a really good job of double teaming Marlon Tuipulotu and Jay Tufele at different times. And their linemen did a good job of getting a push on those guys to get them off then getting off to the next level. Exactly. Yeah. So I thought that they had a good game plan there to try to run up the middle. Yeah. Which then puts even more onus on your two linebackers.
Well, and the thing about when the offensive line double teams and works up to the next level, the linebackers help the D-line by being able to react fast and fill the hole and get the interior offensive linemen to come off of the double team and then go reach the linebackers faster. So when the linebackers are able to react quicker and get downhill, it just helps the D-line, which ends up helping the linebackers in return. And they seem to have lost some cohesion on that last drive. They didn't play it as well as they played it, like you said, in the past. They played pretty well on interior runs this entire season, but something fell apart. And I think when we talk about the backups, and guys getting suspended, you never know who's going to go in the game, and that's why football is such a team sport, because something small can happen. A guy can make a small mistake or something happens and he's ineligible for academics, and at some point it comes back to bite you. And it might not be a starter, for say, initially, but it might be a backup guy who can play a critical role later in the season, and somebody who can sub and come in and play for 10 to 15 snaps and take the pressure off of the rest of the guys in the game, give them a blow, let them catch their breath. And things like that really add up once you get into games like this against a team like Notre Dame. And it'll happen again later on this season where we really need the entire team to step up. And you never know what can happen and when you need certain guys on the depth chart during the season.
Well, speaking of which, I just want to give a little bit of an injury update from Clay Helton in his Sunday night press conference. So, like Shotgun said, Palaie left the game with an ankle sprain, but came back and played through it.
Yeah.
Elijah Griffin suffered from back spasms again.
Though Palaie did not finish the game. He came back for a little bit, but then he was done. He wasn't on that final drive at all.
Yeah. And then Greg Johnson has a shoulder injury. We still don't know the severity of that, and that looked bad when he was coming off. But then when we did see him leave the locker room after the game, he looked okay. So still TBD on that. And then Isaac Taylor-Stewart also suffered an ankle sprain. And then the big one, Vavae Malepeai, he's been playing through knee pain basically this whole season. And Clay said that his knee got too swollen, too painful, and they're going to go in on Tuesday and have surgery and clean that out. But his status right now is TBD. So right now it looks like Stephen Carr and Marquise Stepp are running backs 1 and 2, which, given how Stepp played against Notre Dame on Saturday, it's kind of maybe a good thing for USC to get Stepp some more carries and more in the limelight, right?
And his role increased this game. He was in the first quarter. We saw that last week. He got his first quarter carry, which is just telling you, hey, you're getting more responsibility. It's not a specific situation.
Yeah.
We're getting you more opportunities. But then something else that I saw in this game. He's basically been in to run the ball.
Yeah.
When they throw the ball, they're bringing somebody else in. Whereas this game, the pass that was just short of Amon-Ra St. Brown in the first half, he was in on that play.
Yeah, he was.
So he stepped up, and now he got pushed back, and maybe you go, if one of the other guys have kept him off him a little bit, but it was more the offensive lineman block on that one that got the pressure in that case. But, I'm just saying that he's in there for passing downs this week, so that tells you that they're increasing his role. And that's kind of what you expect. When young guys start showing, okay, you can do it.
Well, he's playing well. He's running the ball well, and I think one of the big hurdles for young running backs is pass protection. I mean, you could stick a young running back in there. He's athletic. He can run. He can get downhill. But can he pass protect on third down, or can we only put him in on first and second down? And I think that this game will be a great game for him to really build some confidence and to get some reps, like you said, on passing down, so we can get some experience on passing downs, being able to – it is very hard for a running back to start to learn pass protections because they want to come to USC, score touchdowns, win. I mean, that's what they want to do. They don't want to come in and stay in the backfield and block these humongous defensive ends or nose tackles who are busting through the offensive line. But that's really the next step that he has to take as a running back here is being able to pass protect. Otherwise – he can't be a 3-down back. They can only put him in on first down, second down, or short yardage. And I think for him, this game will be a huge game for his confidence against Notre Dame, at Notre Dame. It has to feel good for him to really run the ball well, to break tackles, and he really looked good. I think he deserves the recognition that he's been getting from the team, the coaches, and from people like us. So,
what was your favorite Marquise Stepp run? Because I think there's a couple, so there could be a different one for each of us.
Oh, really? I'm going and I'm taking the goal line, bursting through for the touchdown.
With the carry, that was kind of like
the
Simba moment.
Yeah.
Elijah Vera Tucker push,
and then
if you
he
will.
flexed on him.
Yeah,
it was I called it a bush push redux.
They called it a bush push on the TV copy.
So it was interesting, and I asked him after the game. I was like, "Have you ever been carried? Ever been lifted up?
Anybody ever?
He's a big boy, so that's usually not happening. He's usually people are jumping on his back and he's carrying them with him.
Yeah.
So that could be one. That's Keely's. What about you, Taylor?
I would have said that. I would have said he ran through. I don't want to say he ran through. there were a couple plays on the I like the inside. I like the plays that aren't. Some of the best plays to me are just the regular plays where he just runs through arm tackles. And what I do is I say, would Stephen Carr been able to run through that play? Nothing against Stephen Carr, but Marquise is just a bigger back. And I say, would these other guys be able to run through these arm tackles? Would they be able to handle defensive linemen coming and hitting them and being able to bounce off it and then still get downhill? But mine had to be the symbol play. I guess that we could start to call it the symbol
There was
play.
one where he kept running and it took like 6 Notre Dame defenders. That one, I'm changing mine actually.
So that one was, I mean, terrific. You know, Alohi Gilman, who's a great tackler, comes up and tries to make tackle. He gets out of that and looks like he's going down. He puts his hand down, which he's got to watch out doing because he's done it a couple times where he'll put the hand down and his other arm comes loose.
Swinging. He was swinging. He was swinging a little bit.
So that's a freshman thing, and that's you know a redshirt freshman thing, and that's something that they talked about. You know, he's got to watch the fumbles, and there was a couple of them where I said, "Ooh, got to watch that."
Yeah.
But I love his first big run. You know, great block by Elijah Vera Tucker clearing out the safety coming in. But just seeing the cut, because that's a play that was designed to be an outside tackle play, and he just sees the hole, sees the cut, and takes off. And I think he's gaining more confidence. You're seeing with those type cuts, because a lot of times the plays that he's had in earlier games is he's bullying through people, even if there's a hole somewhere else. And he wasn't always seeing the full allotment of the play. And I think now he's, as you gain more confidence, as you feel the speed of the game a little bit more, you start seeing things like that. And that's why I've preached for the last, 4 or 5 years or whatever, that if you have talented young guys, you got to get them 5 or 6 plays in the game. If it's, now not everything is, an offensive skill player. They need to touch the ball or 5 or 6 plays. But even if he's in, to be a decoy for a couple plays and he gets 2 carries in a game, but those 5 or 6 plays for young guys are so important to learn the speed of the game. It's crucial
to learn the speed of the game, just to learn how physical the defense is, like how physical their opponents are, because it's just different. There's a different atmosphere out there on the field, and a lot of times those young guys, you can't even simulate it at practice. That's the hard part. You have to be in the game to really get the full experience of it. And I think for that, a lot of guys, even for guys that are seniors, 5th-year seniors, a lot of times they don't really settle down in a game until they've gone through a couple plays and made contact with the opponent. I almost said the enemy like it was war. They made contact with the opponent, and that's just the way that it works, because you practice all week. And then you have to get into the game and get a hit, get a tackle, and then everybody's nerves kind of settle down a little bit. So imagine that for a freshman, a young guy, it's amplified, it's tenfold. They really need to understand the concept of, okay, what is the speed that I'm playing at now? It's obviously it's not high school, it's not practice, it's another level, and they're the ones that really need to get that experience the most. So you're 100% right about that, and I think that Marquise will understand that now going forward, that he's getting more and more and more experience at it.
And that's something that, I've been preaching that because that's your development. If you can blow teams out, which USC has struggled with in some of those non-conference early season games, the Western Michigans, the Fresno States, the UNLVs, that gives those guys an opportunity. You're talking about it, how until you hit somebody a couple times. I remember in high school, my final high school game, we were in the playoffs, and I'm playing – the cornerback I'm going up against was an SEC committed player.
Okay.
And he just knocked the crap out of me a few times, and I was like, okay, that's what SEC level is like. It's so much different than facing a 140-pound kid or something like that. So you realize it pretty quickly. And then I got into kind of a battle with him, going back and forth. So, but that's
get the feel of what it feels like, and then you're able to kind of adapt. It's almost like if we were looking at a weather report and it was saying wind is 30, gusting to 60, and then we actually walk outside and, okay, this is what the wind actually feels like.
That's what it was at Notre Dame. It was cold.
It was cold. I was a little. So I know that people always think that players from California are soft, that they go to the beach, that they're just like surfers and say, hey, bro, what's up, stuff like that. I was a little disappointed in some of our players because they all had the ski masks on, because it was
some of them
relative. Well, not all of them, but the skill position players had the ski masks on, of course, because they always do. And I was just thinking, man, like, I know it's cold for you guys, but it's not that cold. You're not playing at Green Bay in December or, even South Bend in December. It's not that cold, but of course, any chance they have to put the ski masks on and play a game, they're going to wear. I thought that was very
Sometimes it's just a fashion choice, too.
Well, exactly, that too.
Now, looking on a bigger picture as a whole, I think USC kind of came out of this game thinking it was a positive, even though they didn't get the win, just because they played tough against, I guess, a number 9 ranked team. But they're still 3-3. That doesn't mean that they won on the road yet this season. I know I already said Clay Helton said that if they play like they did against Notre Dame, they'll win the rest of the season. But you also hear Clay Helton in his Sunday night conference call saying that they need to fix technique, fundamentals. It's a work in progress. They'll get better as the season progresses. Is that acceptable to have a team? I mean, like, you constantly want to improve in a season, but don't you want to have those things shored up prior to week 7, 6?
I mean, I thought the tackling had been improved in that Washington game, and 2 weeks later now, it's a lot different back that you're facing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in Jones, he's a bigger guy, and he's going to run through some tackles a little bit more. The tackling was the explosive plays, and that's what Clay said. You know, the difference was they had explosive plays the first half, we didn't. All those explosive plays came on missed tackles.
Ran through. So I'll say this.
It wasn't like there were deep bombs or something going over. No,
right. You're 100%
just missed
right.
tackles.
Yeah. I know it was a different kind of running back. He was a very physical downhill running back, but at the same time, it's easier to tackle a running back like that by just getting your body on him and the rest of the defense swarming, because it's harder if you're going against a small, quicker back who can make moves, make guys miss. It's almost like a chicken in a chicken coop, and you just kind of, like a Barry Sanders. That's harder to go against. It's harder to practice against. But just a big back that's more like a train, a locomotive. If you're physical against him and you get 11 hats to the ball, Keely and I, when we do the pregame show, we were saying that look for in this game how many hats, how many helmets is USC getting to the ball carrier. And that's where you can gang tackle somebody like that and really suppress the running back strength and size with gang tackling, getting hats on the ball, driving your feet. But we weren't doing that. Talanoa had a couple plays that he has to make those tackles. He got held, like you said, on one of those plays a little bit, but he has to make those tackles. I would tell him to his face that he has to make those tackles if he wants to be a great safety. He knows that. I know he has those standards as a player, as an individual, so he'll go and fix them. But some of our other guys, I just was very disappointed, like you said, in the tackling that happened, especially against a big back, because big backs are a little bit easier to face because it's not like they're going to shake and bake you. You just have to be – I know I see your face right now, but I'm telling you, it's just a little bit easier in terms of as long as you gang tackle and everybody gets there and just kind of jumps on top, it's a little bit easier than just getting shook in the open field.
Now, is this coming from – a football player perspective or from a Taylor Mays perspective where I'm bigger than anybody anyways, so it's easier to tackle the big guy? It's easier to tackle Toby Gerhart than it is, Christian McCaffrey.
But it does, yeah, it is. It's just easier in terms of that guy was big, and he's, if you look at size and you just look at force and two people running at each other, he was a big back. However, I just think that it'd be easier for us if we got more guys to the ball carrier and gang tackled him rather than it being a dynamic back who has good feet, is quick, and just making guys miss, because those guys are very, very hard to tackle. I think you can at least combat a big physical back by gang tackling. It's hard to combat small, dynamic, quick, kind of shaky back. That's a little bit harder. So that's all I'm saying.
Which I think why that works so well for Notre Dame is they're so sound on their blocks.
Yeah.
There was not a lot of, Jay Tufele and Marlon Tuipulotu have been and Drake Jackson have been wreckers.
Yeah.
And, they've just been destroying plays because they beat their own blocks and then force, running backs to go a different way, just force someone else to come and help. That wasn't happening a ton last night.
Yeah.
It was a lot of times it was this guy, it's his assignment. He's got to be the guy to make the tackle.
Yeah.
And that's when USC was getting in trouble. And that's when those explosive plays come, because it was one guy missing a tackle. And if you miss one guy, and Isaiah, I think, said it in the post-game presser that, we're a gap-to-gap team. And if one guy missed a tackle, then it's a 15-yard run easily. Yeah. And that's kind of what happened, because guys weren't beating their blocks a ton. So I think that's partly you just give credit to Notre Dame. They were really sound in it. Yeah. I don't think that USC's guys were getting beat all the time. Yeah. But they were just doing a sound job of making sure they took care of their responsibility. It wasn't like they were just pancaking everybody or anything.
No, they weren't.
But they were doing a good job blocking.
Yeah.
Let's go to our live callers now. I'm sure we'll dip back into questions. We'll actually go to questions, but we'll address the game more through that. But let's go to our first caller. Hello, you are live on Tunnel Vision.
Hello, this is Mike from Silver Lake. I called a couple weeks ago. I'm a Notre Dame fan, but I'm calling because last week I tried to watch your show on YouTube, but somehow it wasn't on. All I got was the bye week. Was there a reason for that?
Every once in a while we have technical difficulties. If you can't find us on YouTube or on Facebook Live, there's also multiple.
We also didn't have a live show on Thursday last week. We had one on Sunday, but Shotgun was out of town, so we didn't have one on Thursday, if that's what you're saying.
Okay, so I missed it. Well, I thought the game turned out as I had anticipated, in the sense that SC, I thought, could win this game. And I thought that they were faster. They were much more talented in many of the ways. And they seemed to, by the second half, they seemed to really have got the Notre Dame's number on the defense. One of the questions I have is, so Graham Harold said after the game, well, for the first one of the questions was why weren't you performing well in the first half? Yet the second half you were. Yeah, he said, well, in the first half we were going slower and we were thinking more about it. The second half we just let the guys play. Now, wasn't that supposedly supposed to be the whole rationale for a system from the beginning to just let the guys play, that their speed and their talent and stuff would overrun them? I don't understand why he didn't just do that also at the beginning of the game. I can understand Slovis being a little tentative at first, but they were basically initially plodding along. They weren't fast-paced, not like in the second half. And that's what if they did that in the first half, especially since they were running almost over Notre Dame most of the first half, they would have been up by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
That was the interesting thing talking to Graham Harrell. He kind of admitted that this team sometimes has a mental problem a little bit. The offense does, where they get into their heads a little bit too much. He said that they were trying to almost do too much, and that's why he went up-tempo, just so that you can't think about the last play too much. The interesting thing, too, is that when I talked to him, he said that there were some missed signals in the first half, but I wasn't able to get a follow-up because we were already past our follow-up questions. But I just thought it was interesting. Why not go up-tempo normally rather than wait for that? What do you guys think?
I think that might be a directive from above at times. I think that it might also be a freshman quarterback, and you want to give him an opportunity, and a 7 games center, who's making all the calls of the line, to give them and let them have an opportunity to see the picture and get an idea of it. And if if they want to call down a change of play, there were some check with me plays where they would look to the sideline. But I think a lot of times I think they're wanting to give those guys an opportunity, because you did see early in the year when they were going full tempo in that Fresno State game, what happened? One bad miscommunication not only destroys the drive when JT Daniels gets hit and he fumbles, but also destroys his knee. And you could make the case that it has destroyed the season, because you could make the case that the way JTD looked in that game and the way he's able to move the ball a little bit more consistently than the other 2 quarterbacks, that maybe they were 4-1 or 5-0 going into this game. And does a veteran quarterback make one more play than a young quarterback? And veteran is a kind of a loose term there. A guy with 12 games experience, we'll say. So that maybe might have frightened the coaching staff and said, we see what could happen with one bad play. Let's take it back a step and let's just assess a little bit more before we just go all out. I don't know. It's hard to say exactly without someone just coming out and saying this is exactly why we changed.
Yeah,
you got to remember that this was Keaton had only played in 2.5 games up until this point. And you really have to remember that it's completely different for a quarterback playing on the road than it is at home. Remember what happened at BYU, and you have to think playing at Notre Dame is BYU tenfold. Again, it's going to be it's going to be loud. It's just a lot of things going on for a freshman quarterback to have to deal with. You want him to get in there, really feel what it's like. You want the offensive lineman to kind of feel what it's like and to feel what the tempo is going to be like. And that's just a hard situation to go in there right away with a true freshman quarterback who's played 2-3 games.
Coming off a concussion.
Hasn't concussion.
Practiced, really.
Hasn't, yeah. How is he gonna feel? What type of confidence is he gonna have out there? It's not like walking in there 13 years ago with Matt Leinart and the rest of the cast, and you can just come out there and let it hang. Yeah, not like that. So
I mean, he did have 2 snaps experience against a top 10 team.
Yeah, he had a little bit. Yeah, he did.
True.
Going into the game,
doesn't really remember that second snap though. Yeah. But
well, and even the second snap, like we talked about, JT getting hurt. That second snap for what is that?
Utah game.
Guard gets beat.
Miscommunication.
He gets hit in the mouth.
Yeah.
He's out.
Yep.
So that's just you got to be careful right now for us.
Yep. Alrighty, let's go to our next caller. Thanks, Michael, for the call. Let's go to, I believe it's Cameron. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Yep. Cameron from Frisco. How are you guys doing? It's really, yes. First of all, Keely, it was nice to meet you up at Hoppers in Salt Lake.
Nice to meet you as well.
Yes, the USC fan, BYU alum.
Very nice.
And I'm glad you guys both enjoyed Tucanos while you're up in Utah. It's one of my favorite Brazilian places in Utah as well.
It was very good. Yes. What's your question for the team?
Yep. My question is actually for Taylor Mays.
Okay.
First of all, it is actually an honor to be actually asking this question to Taylor Mays because for me, you are the greatest secondary player that I have ever watched in my entire life at USC.
Oh, appreciate
you, honestly,
man.
Hard hitter. You were just hard hitter, man. Just watching you play was honestly one of the highlights of my teens, growing up.
So you must be from that time. Yeah, I get what you're saying. You were in that that time frame.
I was during those glory years of Pete Carroll era. Oh yes.
Oh, that sounds
so.
Good,
My
man.
question actually for you. There's 2 questions for you, and one is about your experiences at USC and also your experiences in the NFL. And we've always talked about tackling, how this is a constant problem for the program, for the defense.
Yeah.
So what, I don't know, techniques or drills or methods that you did or your team did under Pete Carroll, Nick Holt, the NFL that you saw that were a big effect in game time situations that you wish maybe the defense needs to apply it to their practices, and what kind of go over those kind of methodologies and things like that, kind of go a little bit technical here. And then question number 2, this is actually a personal one for you. This is about your hit in the 2009 Rose Bowl against Penn State, when you took down, when you shoulder tackled the running back and then your own teammate number 15, because that highlight by far, we watch it at least a dozen times a year. And it's the greatest hit I have ever seen in college football, NFL history, by far. I want to know what was going through your head before the play, during the play, and after the play when you were talking to Brian Cushing, Ray Maluga, Kaluka Mayava, etc.
Thanks, Cameron.
Can I do the first one?
Go for it.
So we talk about this all the time. We talk about tackling. What in shotgun, Keely will ask, well, what can they do? Do they tackle at practice? What can they do at this point in the season to fix a problem? And I think it's just something that's layered. You have to learn certain techniques during training camp and then try to maintain them throughout the season. One of the things that for me in tackling is there's a gap of space in the last 2 or 3 yards before you go and tackle a running back, a wide receiver, that you have to continue moving your feet and moving towards them. And I think that a lot of guys get uncomfortable in that space because they don't want to get shook. They don't want to miss the tackle. But if you don't practice that and you don't practice it going full speed in an athletic position, kind of breaking down and moving towards the ball carrier at a certain speed, you'll never be able to do it in the game. That's when you see in the game a lot of guys will kind of come in, get in an athletic position, and then they'll just dive and kind of throw their body in there and end up missing, end up not getting enough of their body on the running back's legs, getting their head across the running back. That's the things to me that have to be practiced on a consistent basis, and you have to practice them. You can't really practice them half speed. So that's the hard part about this time in the season is if the coaches are trying to be less physical at practice and you haven't mastered these techniques that need to be mastered for us to be successful tackling in the games, you're never going to do it. So it's kind of a hard thing because they'll say, well, we haven't tackled well, but we'll continue to work on it. But can you really work on it at this point in the season? And that's kind of where I'm a little skeptical because to me, certain tackling techniques have to be learned from day one. Mm-hmm. You got to learn it from the ground up. It's got to be the roots of the tree. And then, you know, once the tree sprouts, you're kind of just maintaining and doing the things that you need to do. But if we haven't learned those things a year ago, 2 years ago, how can we just learn them now after the Notre Dame game? You know, that's for me one of the biggest problems I see with tackling. And I think it's just going to take an entirely new philosophy about tackling to really change what these guys have been doing tackling-wise. I hate to say it, but it's just going to take I'm not saying it's going to take a new coach. I just think it takes an entirely different philosophy and mindset about tackling for it to change.
And unfortunately, that really hasn't been the MO of this coaching staff. You know, they're pretty set in being consistent in their ways, which to some things is great. Yeah. But as Keely and I have said for what, ad nauseum? Ad nauseum for the last 3 years?
Pretty much. Ad nauseum plus.
Is when things aren't going right, shake it up.
Yeah.
You know, if you got to bring a clown to practice, literally a red-nosed clown, and have somebody hit him, then do it. You know, whatever. You know, have somebody dress up in a clown uniform, give them pads, and just hit this person. Whatever. It doesn't matter. You got to switch things up. And that hasn't been necessarily the case for this team. So it's going to be hard. It's hard for me to see them suddenly just making a big
and
jump.
especially when given all the injuries that happened against the Notre Dame, like they're just not. That's not in their philosophy at all to be like, okay, guys, let's turn it up this week. It's just not in their
and especially
DNA.
When Khalil Tate's coming to town.
True. And then Taylor,
would you like to answer your Rose Bowl question?
What was going through your mind?
What was going through? There was nothing going through my mind. You just kind of I think it was a backside post. It was like a backside skinny post. So we were playing cover 3, and the quarterback kind of tries to. I'm on video, right? Yeah. The quarterback tries to look at you, and just to keep you backpedaling straight down the middle of the field, and then just tries to open his back hip and smoke the ball in there. And I just had a good break on it, and I think that. It probably would have been, I probably would have got maybe suspended for it nowadays, 10 years later. But, you know, just like I said to Ryan, I think the first time I came on here, sometimes you got to just run full speed into the guy and just see what happens. And that's why you lift all the weights and eat all the food and be as strong as you can so that you're coming with the most power possible, running into the target and then just kind of seeing what happens with physics.
And what were you talking about with Kush afterwards?
Oh, well, Kush was my roommate, so Kush was probably just like that. Kush probably just said something dumb that was trying to make me laugh. And I was, he was pumping me up a little bit, but I don't remember. He probably was talking about like us having protein shakes after the game. Everybody else like having a good time, while we just were sitting back there drinking protein shakes.
Interesting.
Doing bicep curls.
To touch quickly on something you said you weren't even thinking, and I think that applies to the tackling as well.
Yeah.
You know, you can't run up and say, okay, I need to do exactly this. Yeah. It needs to be second nature.
It happens so fast in that little time window, especially if I'm going and closing to the ball carrier. It happens so fast. So it has to be something that's second nature, like you said, muscle memory. It has to be something that you've practiced consistently, and you just don't even think about it. It just happens as instinct.
And something that people were speculating actually in my Twitter mentions last night was when you don't tackle a lot and then suddenly you're going full speed on Saturdays, are you more susceptible to injuries? Where do you lie on that, Taylor?
Well, you probably are because you probably I would say you're more susceptible to shoulder and or neck injuries, elbow injuries, because you get a little more sloppy with. Sometimes you can stick your arm out, the running back comes through, and that's how you just get a dislocated shoulder, rather than getting more of your body. Rather than getting more of your body on
shoulder injury,
the ball carrier, and not letting your shoulder joint take all of the impact for the tackle. So I think tackling and being physical is the baseline of a defense. I've always thought that. I think that's a pretty easy argument to make, because if it's okay to get, like, there was a play initially in the game where OG Elijah got beat on a 50-50 ball to 83 for Notre Dame Chase.
Yeah,
that's going to happen. Those plays kind of happen, but you can't get beat on tackling, because tackling is something that you have control of. You can control how physical you are. But some of those other things, the dinks and dunks of the quarterback, you can't control. But tackling is something that you can control, you can practice. So why not be the best as you possibly can be at it? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm going to go to another caller, and then we're going to jump into questions. And I know we have a full call queue already. I just want to have a reminder. If you're calling in, please keep it concise. One question if you can. We just want to keep it going and make sure we can get to everybody in the call queue. But let's go to our next caller. Hello, you are live on television.
Hi, guys. It's John from Glendora.
Oh.
Hello.
Hey, guys. So my biggest thing is just seeing and just making a quick I watched the entire game. I always watch every game, but I just feel like the defensive line, I don't know about you guys on Taylor. I mean, I know how you are when you play defense. You didn't take plays off, but it just looked like the defensive line was taking plays off. I don't know about your guys' opinion, but what do you guys think?
Just about the defensive line play in general?
And take plays off?
Just about how they, were taking plays off. They looked like they were taking plays off. They looked like they were not getting off the ball right. They looked like they were being a little soft, getting pushed back too far. I just think they got manhandled a little bit, and that causes a lot of friction when it comes down to, the linebackers trying to make a tackle. You're getting bumped by an offensive lineman. You don't have your defense line getting penetration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was their worst game this season. However, I'm probably more willing to give credit to Notre Dame, because I thought their schemes were really good.
Yeah.
And the fact that what they were trying to do with those two defensive tackles who have been so disruptive in the middle for USC, and putting all the focus on them, or kind of putting the onus on the linebackers, where USC has struggled with read and recognition at times, where they've struggled with tackling at times. And I think that's something you might see more and more going forth this season, until USC shows their linebackers can step up in the hole and make all the plays, instead of stepping up in the hole and a guy gets 5 yards, because those defense tackles have been so good.
Yeah.
You know, what do? You attack weaknesses, you try to eliminate strengths. And I think that's what Notre Dame did a really good job of with their game plan.
So there's two kinds of linebackers, and this is one of the things that I really like about EA, is when he gets downhill, he's very physical, and he will hit you as hard as he can, give you everything he can. The other type of linebacker is, if you're going to be a more athletic side-to-side speed linebacker, if you're not going to be a downhill linebacker, then you have to use your athleticism and your speed to make plays. And like you're saying, if they're going to double team our two defensive linemen or double team our guys on the inside, then our linebackers have to be fast and get downhill and get those double teams off the defensive linemen. And that's not happening. Our guys were kind of just saying, this is why I was challenging John Houston so much, because he has to play. He has to have better awareness as a linebacker for us, because they were double teaming our defensive line, and then those guys were getting to the second level, and we just didn't have a chance. And we could play so much better on defense than we showed. Those guys have to have a lot better awareness, and they have to get downhill a lot faster, safeties included. Talanoa's not out of this yet, but I think it starts with the linebackers and just how they play as it coincides with our D-line, because those guys really play together. And, that's why you say the front seven, not just the front four. It's really the front seven needs to play better together.
Yep, makes sense. Thanks, Sean, for the call. We appreciate it as always. Alrighty, let's actually jump into some questions. We'll get back to our callers in a bit. First off, from Nick on YouTube, he says, what does the Tunnel Vision crew think about the fourth quarter time management?
I don't think that there were some people asking me about the time, whether USC should use their timeouts on that last drive instead of spiking the ball. But when I went back to, and I said maybe they should have, and I went back and watched when the timeouts were. It was after a sack, and all your receivers are downfield. So it's a great time to call a timeout.
It would have,
because you're not going to lose 15 seconds at least. Waiting for everybody to get back to the line of scrimmage, get everybody to line back. And the other one was inside the red zone. I can't remember exactly what play transpired, but I was like, when I saw it, I was like, that's not a bad time to use it either. You've got to get 2 scores, but you're basically going to need that onside kick regardless, because you got the ball back.
You're gonna have to do an onside kick either way.
You got the ball back with 3:30.
Yeah,
that's just not enough time to get 2 scores with 3 timeouts. It's not really realistic without getting an explosive play, which obviously Notre Dame was defending everything against.
They're playing.
A lot of times they were playing that cover 3 cloud with safeties at 15 to 20 yards deep. So they're really trying to make sure. Washington played it with 2 safeties deep, that deep. Notre Dame was even more intent on saying, hey, you're going to have to work your way down the field against us. So I didn't think that was bad there. The biggest thing was if you can't get off the field, and especially on 3rd down on that long drive, it eats up 7 minutes almost, 7 minutes of time. And there were – obviously there was the initial 3rd down where they got away with a little bit of a push off. I thought it was more of a push off. Because I was near that sideline at the time. However, when I rewatched it, I was like, that's not that bad.
Yeah.
But there were opportunities to get off the field. Even the scramble. The drive at that time was around 3 minutes, and then when he scrambled and picked up the 3rd and 10,
it's just one of those plays. It comes.
You add another 2 to 3 minutes to it, so I just think that Notre Dame was able to kill it. So I don't think it was really USC's game management besides not being able to get off the field.
Yeah, that drive ate up a lot of clock time possession
and switched the momentum because USC had all the momentum. If you get one of those stops, like we said earlier. At least I think
it would have been.
They're going down and scoring again.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. Jasper Smith on YouTube says, question, where's Elijah Winston or Raymond Scott at linebacker? Give them a shot.
With the injuries that they had, those would probably have been the next options to go to. And I think Elijah Winston has basically practiced 1 week.
Yeah, I don't even think he's exactly 100%.
Yeah, I think he's cleared. I know he's still coming along.
Yeah.
So I don't know that he was ready to go in there. Raymond Scott's kind of been lost in the mix. He's kind of shuffled between positions, so I don't know if they have the confidence in him or what position they feel like they would have the confidence in him. Like those guys, those aren't the guys that you're going to ask a John Houston or Kanai, guys that have got experience and are playing. John Houston especially, you're not going to replace him with one of those guys. Yeah. Maybe you could go to your 4-3, but how many of those guys, because it's a special package normally, how much has any one of those guys practiced in one of those other positions?
You don't have any.
Yeah, it's hard to say that they've done a bunch with that. Maybe that's on the coaches not having enough guys to prepare, but it's also when you get certain injuries or certain guys are not available all at the same position, it can create a big cascade of kind of limiting what you can do.
Yeah.
Yep. So Scott on Facebook has a different opinion about Pally EA. He says, regardless of the scheme we run, what is going on with EA? He seems to be getting worse the longer he's in the system. Why can't he tackle anymore?
I don't really remember him missing any tackles. His angles are more of a concern than his actual tackling skills, I think, in my opinion.
So EA, with me at least, as long as you're a physical football player and you try to take the head off of the opponent, I can work with you. You know what I mean? I can work because if you look at it on film, if you're an offensive player and you see defenders come in full speed trying to rip your head off, to me, that's the most intimidating thing that you can do. I don't know if I've seen EA missing tackles or necessarily out of place like I've seen some other guys. I guess I have to go back and look at it, but
he did miss some tackles in the first 3 or 4 games.
Yeah,
I thought we were talking about yesterday.
Season.
Oh, okay. But he could definitely play better as well. But I think it's everybody needs to step up in a couple different ways, and I think that will take the pressure off of each other also. If guys played better individually, then it would just help everybody else out. I think guys are just trying to do way too much at this point, and
that's one of the things that one of the coaches told me about Pallier is that I had to tell him. This is the words of the coaches. Basically said I had to tell him you can't do everybody else's job. You can only do. You got to focus on yours. Now, sometimes guys are really, really good and they make great plays,
Yeah.
and they're out of play and they make a great play. Like Talanoa's play against whichever game it was, Utah, where he left a guy wide open in the end zone.
Yeah.
He made a great play on the made a great tackle on the play.
Yeah.
And sometimes those things happen, but you can't rely on that, and you can't expect that.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes a guy is able to beat a block and helps out someone else, but you can't just be like, just do your job. You got to focus on your job, especially when the issues that this defense has had, where it's been when someone doesn't make a tackle and that's when it opens things up, or someone takes a bad angle, or someone doesn't contain the edge. Those type things where you need everyone to do their job first.
Well, everybody has to do their job, and then when there is a big play or something, you can look at the film and say, okay, this big play busted because so-and-so didn't stay outside. So it's almost – it sounds weird in the context of how I'm going to say it, but everybody needs to be very selfish. They need to be selfish about doing their individual responsibility, and then you have 11 guys that are all selfish, and all the holes are filled. That's really how it works, and it's not actually selfish. It's not like they're not team players, but at the same time, if I'm the inside linebacker and you're the outside linebacker, we both have to do our jobs. I can't try to do your job. It doesn't make sense, and I think that sometimes guys lose sight of that, and they try to make a play because they want to, be these. They just want to do a little bit too much rather than staying in their own lane and just making the plays that they're called on to make. If you're going to be a great player, it's going to come out. It's going to happen, but you have to make the plays that your position is being called to make, period. That's really all it is. So,
and if the coaches really want you to do everybody else's job, then they'll give you a Troy Polamalu position and say, hey, we're going to cover for you. You go do what you do.
Yeah.
So we had multiple questions about Brian Kelly on the field. Judy says, why couldn't they review the missed penalty with Kelly on the field?
On the onside kick?
Yeah, and then Larry, Juan said, how did they miss that? How do you miss that?
How do they miss it? They're Pac-12 refs.
Well, I don't know but how does that work? Like, because I can't lie. Even the kickoffs, I didn't understand what was going on the kickoffs with like some of the new rules on the touchbacks and stuff like that. So I don't know all of the college football rules. I was a little confused because can they review that, him being on the field?
It's not. So they were saying. So according to Clay Helton, that was what he was. While he was complaining about the issue, that's what he was trying to find out.
Yeah.
And they told him it's not a reviewable play.
Well, he wanted to review it because he heard a phantom whistle.
Yeah, they were saying that on the TV copy too.
He said that he felt like some of his players weren't sure whether the play was live or dead, and so he said he felt like some of them were playing hard, some of them weren't playing, and so he wanted that to be reviewed and not and by reviewing that also look at Brian Kelly.
It's just another bad look for the Pac-12 refs. I mean, if you can see Talanoa Hufanga celebrate during the Washington game when we'll say 5 feet on the field, a yard and a half.
Yeah, that was tough.
We'll say that, and that's a dead ball period. There's a change in possession. Nothing is happening at that time. It might even been going into a TV timeout. Not sure.
Yeah.
But that's a dead ball. A live ball and someone is 5 yards on the field and you don't see it at all? If he had a jersey on, you'd call 12 men on the field, wouldn't you?
He was literally like a couple yards further back from the rest of the onside kick team.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like he was in the opposite corner. He was like,
it was egregious.
I was. That didn't make sense.
And actually, the punt was. I mean, not the punt. The onside kick attempt was directly going towards
him
where he was. If it would have.
So if you're the back official, you're standing behind that. You're going to be watching the ball, right? How would you not see a large?
Yeah, and he was out. He didn't. I mean, he was out there.
It's just like I said, just another bad look for the Pac-12, and who's really surprised there?
Yep, pretty much. Let's go to a YouTube question. Jasper Smith wants to know, given that Clay Helton says that they have a shot at the Pac-12, do you think that the rest of their Pac-12 slate is beatable? You have a tough Oregon team coming in. Cal has a great secondary. What does this rest of the season look like, and what are you guys thinking?
I mean, again, they have just as much talent, if not more, than all the teams. Probably more than at least all of them, except for Oregon, maybe. Oregon's the only one that's in the same picture. The rest of the rosters, just USC has more depth than those other teams. Just more guys that are highly talented guys. But scheme wins in football. Basketball is an individual sport. You can have one guy dominate the ball and you can win regardless of your scheme at times. Football, you can't do that. Football, you can have terrible athletes but a great scheme and you can beat anyone.
And great scheme and technique, and they play with yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
But yeah, you have the ridiculously good triple option scheme and you can beat anybody.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties, so I'm trying to do that behind the scenes. Let's actually go to some callers because we have another full call list. Let's go to our first caller online. I believe it's David. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hey, thanks for taking the call. I got a question for Taylor Mays. I hear you guys always saying that USC has the best talent in Pac-12, but why can't they play defense like Oregon? That's it. Thank you very much.
Well, that's a great question because it does make sense. We say it all the time. You know, we have the talent, but along with having talent, you would want to have results, and you should have results that go with the amount of talent that we continue to talk about, right? So I would think in that regard that it's like we're talking about. You can have a team that, like in basketball, that has just the most talented players and they can dominate. And in football, it's a little bit different because talent is one thing, but then there's also technique, there's attitude, there's work ethic. And I think that it just depends on a couple of different factors because that's when you get into talking about the attitude of a football team, the attitude that the players have. What are they doing at practice? What did they do during training camp? What type of confidence do these players have throughout the week? What are they doing at practice to build their confidence? And I think that's where this team really struggles, and I think that's where great teams, not just at USC, but across the country, you can tell the difference in coaching staffs. When I look at some of these, I'm not going to mention any teams, but some of these other teams in college football who have elite talent, they know that they have elite talent, but they also work harder than anybody else. And that's one of the things I think about USC teams in the past. In the past 25 years, some of the best teams have been the most talented teams, but they've also been the teams that work the hardest and been the hungriest teams with the most to prove. And I think that our team needs to get back to that attitude and that mentality. I think that I don't think we work hard enough. I don't think we're hungry enough, and I don't think we really understand what either of those concepts are really truly about.
Thanks for the call. I think Taylor summed it up pretty well. Let's go to our next caller.
Spitting hot fire.
I know. Hello. You are live on Tunnel Vision.
Hi, this is Tracy from Santa Monica. Thank you guys for all for halftime. I just think that's not something that should happen. And also why we can't challenge more penalties like the roughing the passer, why Clay doesn't go after the officials more. Thank you again. Thanks for everything you do.
Thanks, Tracy.
Do you want to start with that one, Keely? You had the best view, at least.
So it was at the end of the half. So what happened was Stepp kind of started jawing with someone, and then Jalen McKenzie, Stepp was kind of half jawing, and then Jalen McKenzie took it seriously and kind of got in Notre Dame's face, and then it kind of got worse and worse. And half of USC's team was going into the locker room.
So that was actually taking place near midfield initially, because Stepp got tackled on the play. USC, had the final play. And then it just kind of kept moving towards, because everyone's trying to run off, and they're running off in two separate directions to an extent. Both of the tunnels are on the same end, but one's in the corner, one's in the middle. So as they're going, instead of separating, they came back together.
Well, and then some of them heard things and then turned around and then went back in. And so J Tufele took off his helmet and was I could just see his fro just going everywhere. He was just he wanted the smoke, but he But what happened was, credit to USC's coaches at least, they tried to get in there and try and separate guys. They tried hard, and Stepp tried to separate guys as well, but then it just kept getting worse. Clay Helton somehow lost his shoe in the process. I know.
That's why he couldn't control the situation. He only had one shoe.
But
it was bad leg.
Lopsided.
I did tell Shotgun this after the game. I was like, it says something about USC's second half turnaround that no one really talked about the fight afterwards, because we were all talking about how USC came back in the game, but I mean, accountability, discipline, that's everything that Clay Helton talked about over the offseason, and it didn't really happen. I mean, sometimes those things are weird just because if you have more guys, I guess, from the opposing team coming in and aggravating your players, then how do you stop that? But it was not a good look.
I would also point out that Notre Dame did a really good job of not being cheap shot artists, but being right on the borderline.
Right there. They were like,
a lot of times when a play's over, someone gets pushed over a pile. You know, just a lot of things like that, that if you do it more egregiously than they did, you would get a penalty. But they were just
it happened. It happened to John Houston. He guys getting pushed over. I was like, are you gonna get up and fight that too? But then that would have probably been too much. But they were. A lot of the offensive linemen are coming up trying to push our guys, and it's a really hard position for the guys because if somebody comes up and pushes you, you're going to get up fast and say, hey. So
and there were a lot of situations. There was one where Elijah Griffin made a play on the boundary and pushed a guy out of bounds, and then someone from the bench pushes him in the back, and it was and he turns to the ref and goes. And there were just several instances where things were like that, but that was also how the game was called. Now, if this was the Utah game, the way that was called, and that was also Michael Mothershed and some of these other refs, a couple of the guys, I don't think it was the same exact crew, but I think there were some similar officials. The plays that were near the sideline where USC pushes out Ian Book like John Houston, where he had just stepped out. Now, that shouldn't be a penalty, and I think they correctly did not call that. However, that might have been a penalty in that Utah game because things were just being called much differently. This game, it was much looser, and it's interesting. I had a USC coach tell me earlier this season, not leading up to this game, way earlier in the season, we were talking about the Pac-12 refs, and he thinks the Pac-12 refs are not very good. He's like everyone else.
Yeah.
And he said, and he brought up Notre Dame. He said, it's amazing. We go to Notre Dame, and the Pac-12 refs come, and they feel the need to, we're not being biased towards USC.
So they're extra.
And
on that first Notre Dame drive, they were Notre Dame's offensive line were holding on every play. It was egregious. Yeah, it was bad, and it continued the rest of the night as well.
And
they called a couple though.
And so he said that he's like, so it feels like the calls go against us. Now maybe that's just bias because of his own opinions on it. But then he's like, and then when Notre Dame comes out here, the ACC officials come out, and he feels like they're making sure they're taking care of Notre Dame.
Yeah,
and so. You would think your conference would take care of you, but no, not necessarily. The Pac-12 referees are just not good, and the roughing the passer call, it's a borderline call, and it goes against USC, ends up leading to a 3 points, which was the margin of victory. So did that play into it? Who knows? But there were just things that were not called there.
I mean, Clay was asked point blank, do you think your team should have won this game? And he said no. And he pointed to the lack of offensive plays in the first half. So he didn't blame it. He said we own it as a staff, as players as a whole, rather than maybe turning around and being like, hey, it's officiating that was the issue there. So, But thanks for the call, Tracy. Let's go to another caller. We're going to do some rapid fire, guys.
What was her final part of her question?
She said, why didn't Clay challenge officiating more?
Oh, yeah, because I wanted to point that out, is that Keely and I see him. If you did not see the onside kick, did you not see him going after the officials the entire time? There's just this misconception that he's always a nice guy, but during game time, he's fired up. He's going after officials.
Once the hat comes off, he seriously though. Once the hat comes off, he's not. I mean, he's really upset.
True. Alrighty, let's go to Alan, our caller. You're live on Tunnel Vision. Hello.
Hey guys, this is Alan in St. Louis again. Thanks for taking my call. 2 quick things, and I'll go right into the question. First, apologies to Shotgun for my Cardinals beating his Braves because we did not deserve to win that series.
Rough.
Second, Taylor, you were a freshman when I was a senior at USC, and I remember distinctly walking by you once and thinking, that's why I don't play college football. Look at that dude. So my question is, we talked about how crazy the schedule was to start the season for SC this year, but last year they played a 9-4 Stanford team. They played a Texas team that won a bowl game, a big bowl game. We played Washington State that went 11-2, and the first 6 games were 4-2 last year. And had a freshman quarterback. First 6 games effectively this year, we've had a freshman quarterback and played 3 good teams, and we're 3-3. Kind of similar starts in terms of schedule and personnel. Do you think we're any better than we were last year?
I think I've seen improvements this year, definitely.
Yeah.
I think the new coaches that have come in have made a big impact. Greg Burns, I mean, Clay Helton talked about that tonight, about the impact he's had with that very young secondary, which makes you wonder, like, what could have Greg Burns did last year with a all-veteran secondary, and how, you know, maybe they could just have been locked down the whole time and gives you some different options.
No pun intended.
True. I think the defensive line has done really well this year. You know, like I said, I thought this was their worst game, which is telling because they've been really good. They've been fantastic, and they did really well at times yesterday. You know, especially early in the second half. Before that long drive, they were playing really well.
They were.
The defense was playing really well. So, you know, there was some attrition there. How much did that play into it? There's a lot of, you know, factors into that, but you got to make plays when it counts. So I think they're better off than they were last year. It gives me, I think that they'll win the close 10-point games against inferior talent. I don't think you're losing to the Cal team they lost to last year that had no offense at all, or the UCLA team. You know, some of those games that were close against inferior opponents, I don't think they would lose.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
You could say that BYU, inferior opponent, that's a close game, but I think it was just different last year. I think they were just getting beat last year. I think this year they gave the game away to BYU.
Yeah. That was one, and I think the only clear game where was at UW. Like, it's hard to argue that game. We kind of got beat decisively, in my opinion. But some of these other games, BYU, I really thought that this Notre Dame game was our game to win, especially when it came down to that part at the end. But obviously we didn't pull through. But to me, just this UW game is the only game where I say, man, that game they really just played better than us on that day. But all the other games to me have been relatively 50-50 games where we've had a chance to beat the opponent every single time. So it's hopefully moving forward our guys can understand that. We talk about this all the time, consistency. Yeah. Consistency. And you never know. It's going to come down to a couple plays in every game that are key, decisive plays in deciding who wins the game. And those are the plays that we really have to take advantage of. And that could be the difference between going 8-4 or 6-6. I mean, just a couple plays in the season. So,
yeah. Thanks for the call, Alan. We appreciate it. Let's go to one more caller, and then we'll jump back into some rapid-fire questions and then wrap it up. Let's go to, I believe it's Andrew. Hello, Andrew. You are live on Television.
Hey, team. Yep, it's Andrew from Livermore.
Hello.
Hey, two questions. Hope that the answers are fast. First, to our buddy Taylor. Taylor, the last time you were on the show, you said that you would not come to USC anymore. If Urban, or if you were a high school kid right now, if Urban came, if Urban Meyer came, would you immediately reconsider that strongly? And then the second question is, do you guys think that for the athletic director position that they have somebody really, really in mind, and they may have a verbal agreement, but they can't make it public yet because the person may have said time that they have to stay there and they have to work through the buyout and stuff. Those are my two questions. Fight on. Thank you all very much. Have a great day.
Hey, what's going on, man? So let me say this. I know I did say that, and I still stand behind myself saying that. But the reason that I say that is because any major university that there's just unless they have a coach that has been there for a couple years and you know that the coach is going to be there for sure for the next couple of years, I think that you have to look at it and say, you know, do I want to go to this university? There's a couple universities that we know that the coaches aren't leaving anytime soon, and that would be why initially I would say that, hey, I don't know if I would go to USC at this point if I was a high school senior. However, if Urban said he was going to come, maybe that would, just saying. But I don't know. You got to
all the top 10, top 20, which Taylor was. I don't know exactly where you finished in the recruiting rankings.
I probably was like 10 or 11.
Yeah. So the top 50 players in the country are looking not only at their next 4 years, they're looking at their NFL career.
You have to.
Probably the top 150 are. those guys aren't all going to be in there, but they're looking at that, so they want development, and that's the biggest thing. You want stability and development because stability tells you that you can be developed by that coaching staff that's there, rather than going, hey, well, this guy's gone, and now I don't know who's going to be here, so I don't know if I'll be developed. So the development is a huge key. USC has to show that they can develop players consistently, which hasn't happened the last couple of years, which is why you're seeing some of the kids look elsewhere.
Which
would be a Taylor Mays.
Which, if that was the case, I just was trying to say that it's.
Yeah. You were number 11, Taylor.
Oh, I was.
Yeah.
Oh, did you look it up that fast?
Yep.
Our researchers did it.
Yeah. What was the second question?
He's asked this multiple times in multiple weeks in a row.
Well, you don't know this, but I'm going to be the next athletic director. Yeah.
Don't joke, because there's been previous football players.
We're going to be sponsored by Lululemon, and it's going to be new. Don't tell anybody.
Well, you just told it on air.
No, I don't know, but I would hope that. Well, no, I probably shouldn't say anything.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't say anything.
We have not been told that there is a secret handshake deal, and a lot of times those things get out. So, as far as I know, there's not one of those yet.
Yes. We, in the comments, in the YouTube comments, is an active parent of a current player. Hunter Echols' dad is kind of lighting up the chat a little bit. I know you chart every play, every down, shotgun. What have you seen from Hunter Echols? I know his dad's a little frustrated that he didn't get as much playing time on Saturday.
Yeah, so Hunter was initially this season in as the second outside pass rusher. Just coming in, behind Drake Jackson or behind Christian Rector, was the second string guy. And then, he's always been on the pass rush unit. So when they get in third and long, Hunter Echols is in there. They've done some different things with him. They've used him as a spy at times. They've lined him up. They've blitzed with him. They've dropped him a couple times. So he's done some different things for them. The best thing that he can do is continue to get to the quarterback. Obviously, he got his first sack against Stanford in that game. He got his first half sack, and then he got his first full sack the next week against BYU. But his playing time kind of dropped after BYU. He got inserted. Connor Murphy started without Christian Rector in there, and then halfway through the game they decided to put Hunter Echols in. He was the primary guy at the opposite defensive end as Drake Jackson, and since then, though, his playing time has dropped. So I don't know if they just have more faith in Caleb Tremblay because he's come back from his injuries and stuff, and Connor Murphy. It's kind of been a revolving door. Now, the thing that I find interesting, and I haven't got to ask this question particularly, is are you doing it based on opponent? Because sometimes you want
personnel.
Yeah, you want a speed edge rusher instead of you want a guy that's going to read a little bit more.
Yeah.
So this game against Notre Dame, I found it interesting that Drake Jackson did a lot of reading.
He did.
He was not just attacking all the time.
He's coming down the line of scrimmage, reading. Yeah.
And part of that is the read option game that Notre Dame does. And part of it is probably Ian Book's mobility. So I think you might see some more of that against Khalil Tate next week. The big thing is Christian Rector on the end. That ankle injury is sapping him from lateral movement.
Yeah.
So you saw that on the end around. He was there. He needs to do a little bit better kind of getting out to try to force it back inside, even though he's not going to make that tackle.
Yeah,
but he's
bad.
You can tell he's not able to move the way he's normally capable.
And that's what I had asked Chad K coming into this game. I asked him on Wednesday. I was like, how do you weigh what you can get out of Christian Rector versus someone else in the lineup? And he said, he didn't want to tell me anything because he didn't want to give away game strategy, but he said, we're going to be really cautious with Rector on Saturday, which – given that he played as much as he did, I don't feel like that really lines up with what he said. But I keep asking that. At what point do you think it's better to take someone out or put someone in for Rector instead of having him kind of hobble on this leg and get worse each game?
And it's kind of and maybe someone has to have a standout performance. Look at the running back position. Marquise Stepp has a standout performance. Vi is still being used on special teams and stuff the last few weeks. And, even with the bad knee. So if you would think starting running back, we're going to limit him as much as possible because of this knee injury. No, he's still playing special teams, was covering punts and stuff like that. And instead of that, they kept going. But then Marquise has a big game. Now we think we can shut him down for a couple weeks, get this knee cleaned out, and you'll see how long it takes. So it might be a little bit of a combination of things, whether someone is stepping up and showing, because you saw on that last drive, the defensive ends, Chad K was mad at them.
Yeah.
And, that's why a guy like, Mr. Echols can be mad, because you go, well, these guys aren't getting the job done.
They're not getting the job done, and somebody needs to step up. I think that I don't know if he's still in the chat or not, but what I would say for him to tell his son is, one of the things you have to do is he has to. If I'm Hunter, I'm going to my defensive line coach and I'm saying, hey, I'm doing my part. I know how to play this position. I can potentially play this position. The more you can do, the more beneficial you are to a team. If you can play on the weak side and the strong side, regardless of size, you are more valuable to the team. You want to let your defensive coaches know that I can do this for you, I can do that for you. And you also want to say, hey, coach, what do I need to do? What do I need to show you to be able to get a chance out there on the field? And show your coaches during the week. If you even have to go to the special teams coach and say, hey, coach, let me just find a way to get out there and make us one type of play that really opens eyes to my coaches and says, hey, I want to get out there on the field. And like I said, if the guys aren't getting it done, you got to switch it up because the coaches' jobs are on the line as well. So they want to put the guys who are going to do the most for the team out there on the field. So we'll see.
Yeah. And Hunter is a guy that's on special teams.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
he actually had an offsides penalty on a kickoff.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It was one of the few penalties, but that's a chance for him. If he's not getting the burn that he wants on defense, he can. There's just still ways. If he has to blow somebody up at practice, blow somebody up at practice. That's what I would do. If you got to get it, you got to make them respect you. You got to do whatever you have to do to get.
Somebody
yourself out there.
had suggested that, and he's just got to hit people in practice, and regardless of what the coaches say.
That's what I'm saying. Like, well, don't hurt anybody, but physically intimidate. That's the word we like to use over here.
Sure. Jasper Smith on YouTube says, why doesn't the USC D-line run more stunts and slants?
They run a lot of stunts. They don't do as much slanting necessarily, and partly, I think, because of the way they've been able to beat people.
Yeah.
And that's also just kind of the technique they use. They do more lock, peek, shed, than necessarily just trying to shoot the gaps a lot. So it's partly scheme, but they have been doing a lot of twists and stuff, and that was one of the things that Chad K gave a little bit of credit to Notre Dame. Some of their runs up the middle, they caught them in some of those twists.
They got them, but the linebackers also, hopefully, you want them to be able to adjust. Sometimes a linebacker, there's like a fallback technique, and if a linebacker overruns a gap and the running back cuts it tight on the backside of a zone, you need your linebackers to be able to fall all the way back across those gaps and make the tackle. So it does go both ways at the same time. You want your linebackers to also be able to fall back and clean up some of those plays where the D-line gets caught a little bit.
We have a question from Kay. He or she wanted to know about Ben Griffith's punts and USC not being able to down the ball before getting into the end zone.
I mean, I've said previously that I thought he needed to be more aggressive. I thought his punts were fantastic this game.
Yeah.
He hadn't had a touchback all season. He'd been hitting the ball way too often between the 10 and 20, a lot of times between the 15 and 20. He went for it. He put the ball down there. Only one of them, the guys weren't at the goal line to stop. He had one of them finish on the 3-yard line. The rest of them are bouncing around the 6-yard line, which is exactly what you want.
Yeah.
You got to be down there. Now, sometimes, and this is what they were screaming at the players as they were coming off, especially after the last one that went in when it bounced up and Isaiah Pullman tried to jump up and tip it back, was catch the ball.
Yeah, just catch it.
Because especially the Notre Dame returner was running off up. Now, some guys will stick around a little bit and – you can get a penalty because they'll stick around and wait, and they'll try to jump into you to draw a penalty. Mm-hmm. He's getting out of the way completely, so just run up and see it and catch it. Now, it's not the easiest thing to do. Mm-hmm. It's because you're running down. Okay, I got to see that. Okay, the ball's not going there. I got to track the ball, kind of catch it. Where's the goal line? There's a lot of things you're trying to figure out as you're doing it. But it's a skill that can be done. And a guy like Jaden Williams, there was on the tip ball, he watched it bounce after Isaiah Paul.
I couldn't understand. Yeah,
and that's a freshman mistake maybe. But those are the things that you need your punter to do well, but you need your unit.
It's harder for the punter to do it. That's one of those things that.
And I thought he was fantastic.
Are training camp drills that you get done and. You do those drills and I played a little bit of gunner actually my rookie year in the NFL. I was a pretty big gunner out there. Anyway, but those are drills that almost everybody does. And I was really surprised that our guys had that the awareness was that bad on some of those plays because I couldn't understand that they were getting downfield and that they weren't tracking the ball. You have one guy that goes for the returner, and then you have the other guys who go and track the ball, and they seem to not have that communication part down.
And given how much they practice special teams.
That's what I couldn't understand because that's one of the first things. That's probably one of the only things that you do as – I know we don't run like a normal punt coverage look, but the guys who are the gunners in the position of our punt team, that's one of the only things that they do. So, like, how do you not know? How do you get this wrong repeatedly?
Yeah.
The whole game. I don't know.
A couple of the gunners. You also have, like, Isaiah Paul-Mao as your outside guy, too. So,
yeah.
And that's another question of, do you want your starters on
Well, yeah, that's a whole
teams?
nother. Yeah, that's
especially because in the UW game, he hurt his wrist on that play in punt coverage. So
it's a risk, but it's also getting your best athletes on the field.
You have to, yeah. Because Keely and I were talking about this, and do you want him out there when his wrist is hurt? And I was saying, well, yeah, but it just speaks, I think, to the principle just of a team that, hey, a lot of teams have their best players playing special teams across the board, and it's just one of those things. And unless he was really, really, really hurt, I think they have to leave him out there because it just proves a point.
Yeah. On Facebook, Alejandro says, hey, Taylor, how would you call out John Houston Jr. for his poor play given that he's a captain? What can you really do there?
That's why I'm calling him out.
As far as, wait, are they referencing it as a coach? How would you call him out?
I think so. Not very specific there, but I mean, what do you feel like your hands are tied because you're deeming him kind of an honor leader of the team?
I think that initially you would pull him in one-on-one and say, hey, look, man, you're a senior, you're a captain on this team. We expect a lot out of you, and I don't know if you are playing to the standard that, well, one, I personally have for this team and for this university. And you don't want to embarrass him yet in front of the entire team or in front of the entire defense. But at the same time, here's the thing. Guys that are watching the film, young guys, old guys, they all watch and see what happens on the film. So if they see on film that you are doing X amount of things wrong, and then we go into the meeting room and we see that the coaches aren't yelling at you about it, then it just creates a weird atmosphere. Because if I'm getting yelled at for something and you're a starting inside linebacker and you're a captain and you're not getting yelled at for it, or they're not, admonishing you for it in any way, then it just creates a weird attitude within a defensive room. So I think that sometimes you have to yell at and you have to be hard on the players you expect the most out of, because it sets a standard for the entire team. If you're the best player on the team and you're getting cussed out by the entire coaching staff, then the freshmen, they know, hey, I don't have any room to mess around. If they're cussing out our best players, if they're cussing out Michael Pittman or Talanoa or just anybody, then Drake Jackson says, hey, well, I can't do anything wrong, because if they're going to cuss those guys out, I know they'll cuss me out. So I think that you just have to have – it goes back to standards and what you're willing to accept, and I think that that's where this team gets lost a little bit. Can I say this real quick is on the TV copy, Brian Kelly said in the beginning of the game, the only option for them – this is what he was saying to the team – the only option for them was to come back in after the game and sing the fight song, which I'm assuming he means is for them to win the game and, come back in. I don't know if that's the attitude of this team. I don't know if the attitude for our USC team is we're going to go in and we're going to win this game. We're going to figure it out. I don't know if that is the current attitude for this team. And even if that was the attitude, I don't know if the guys really believe it. And believing it comes from confidence in preparation. And like we said, an overall attitude that this team needs to have built for months on end. And I just don't know if it's there right now.
Just to touch on something Taylor said about
that was long. Sorry.
How you treat players is that you have to coach players differently.
Yeah, that's true.
You coach a superstar differently. How you treat players, though, should be the same across the board. Now, I think that sometimes, and that's Keely and I talked about this, on our drive back to Chicago, and I consider a lot of times that is the difference between good coaching and bad coaching, is whether or not you can treat all your players fair, but also get to players in different ways. And that's a difficult thing to do, especially when you have 105 players. Mm-hmm. But that's, I think, the difference is because, if Keely's the coach, she may coach Taylor Mays different than she coaches me, but does she treat me the same as Taylor Mays? Mm-hmm. I'm a walk-on. He's the All-American. Obviously there's a much different level of, Taylor's beating the crap out of me every day in practice because that's what you're supposed to do. That's what scout team players are supposed to be for. You hit them. Mm-hmm. But am I treated fairly as soon as I go off the field?
Yeah.
Or is Taylor allowed to go do whatever he wants at school and he never has to go to class or anything, but I have to do everything exactly right,
100%
or
right.
you're going to kick me off because you want my GPA to help pull up the team?
Yeah.
That's what some scout team players are for.
No, you
come on, let's be being real.
We're being honest,
true.
But no, you're 100% right. It's the same concept that you would treat people who can't do anything for you the same way that you treat people who can do everything in the world for you. You know, you want to treat just day-to-day people all the same, and you're 100% right about that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on, but I'm just saying that you got to have certain expectations for your players, and if you're wearing a captain thing on your jersey,
it's a higher expectation.
If you are exactly.
There's more. There's more expectation and more expected out of you. There's more.
Everybody's eyes are going to watch you on every single play.
Yeah.
Everybody's eyes are going to watch you on every single play. So it comes with the responsibility.
Alrighty, before we go to our last caller, who, surprise, is Jeremiah from Snake Lake. Yes, I heard he's a little feisty tonight, so everyone buckle up for that one. But, Shotgun, are there any questions that I might have missed or burning questions that you would like to answer?
Let's go to Jeremiah, and I'll grab a couple of quick rapid fires.
Alrighty, let's go to Jeremiah from Snake Lake. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Boy, I'm hotter than a hole on Bourbon Street. Jesus Christ, what is the point of getting out of bed these days?
It's hard, man.
This is horrible. What a horrible life we got. Man, all I want to do is drink. I don't even want to kill snakes.
Wow.
I mean, who don't want to kill snakes? Well, me, for instance, I don't want to kill no snakes.
There's a lot
I got a granddaughter. What's that?
I said there's a lot of them in Snake Lake, I've heard.
Yeah, Snake Lake is full of snakes. You're goddamn right. You walk around the whole thing and there's snakes. That's supposed to be a joke. Jesus Christ, shotgun. I got a granddaughter. I want to say, I don't know names. I want to say it's Trace, the one with the earrings. That's all I know. And she's always, Grandpappy, you need a hobby. And I tried Price is Right, but I don't know nothing about green beans or Toyota Corollas. My life is hell right now, and you people are sitting around, joking around, and doing all this. We need more tailor-made. I went and saw Gemini Man with the prophet Will Smith, and if there is a way that we could clone Taylor Mays, I would do it, damn it. I'm willing to start a fund. Now, who the hell else is with me? Jeremiah from Snake Lake, the hell out of here.
Well, there we go, Jeremiah.
So you guys, since he didn't really ask a question.
I know, Jeremiah, come on.
To us. He didn't ask a question to us, but I think that was more directed to you guys in the chat rooms and stuff to leave us a message. Would you start a fund to clone Taylor Mays, Gemini Man style?
You never know.
A little physicality can always go a long way.
Do we need more Taylor Mays in the world? I'm not sure about that. Just kidding.
I'm curious, real quick, just on try to keep it quick here, but their freshman safety that Notre Dame had, because he reminded me in some ways of you.
Yeah.
His ability to come downhill at 6'4".
He gets down. Yeah, he was a.
I think that's a kid to watch for a couple of years. USC is going to have to face for 2 more years probably, because I think he'll be gone after that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and I think one of the good things about safeties nowadays, which is kind of developed a little bit in the last, I would say, 6, 7, or 8 years, especially in the NFL. Like when in my rookie year, there was still a transition of big safeties being on the right team and within the right defense, and now they have like a dime position on nickel defenses where in-betweener, I guess, could come down and play linebacker, but it's in a certain nickel defense where he's not, he's being asked to be in the run, but also it's a better matchup, him on the tight end, him on the running backs. And I think that's kind of just the evolution of football that's going on now where bigger guys, it's just the evolution of football. I think that will really help some of the safeties moving forward.
He just kind of, there were some tendencies that reminded me of your game as well.
Good player.
So a couple of last rapid fire here.
Okay.
Justin asks, should Keaton have slid that one play or just commit and dive for the touchdown instead of getting smashed, the one at the goal line? I think that's when USC called the timeout potentially that we talked about earlier. But I think he got caught in between. And again, we go back to freshman, playing time. You can see the steps that he's gained as far as a quarterback, as far as throwing the ball. and even scrambling out of the pocket. But how many times has he actually taken off up the middle? Because there were a couple times when they were in cover 2 man, so you see everyone disperse and the middle opens up. And he hesitated a little bit.
He hesitated for a second, and
when there were chances for him, and that's something that'll continue to grow. And you know, that's on the goal line there. He probably should have just continued his angle and dove for it, because then he's not going to take the big hit either. Just the safety's going to get him, you know, off to the right shoulder, but maybe you don't want to get that right shoulder hit too much. But Nuzu Guru asked, Velus Jones does not have a catch all year, right? That's insane. No, he does not. He came back from the transfer portal and has basically been absentia on the offensive side. He's just on special teams for them. You know, they like Drake London better in that second slot position. I guess he does. He's more of a semi-tight end for them. He's a big blocker, big body, so they can just take the tight end out instead of splitting the tight end out all the time. So I think that's where it's partly at. And then Jasper, and it's also they're not rotating a ton on receivers or at all. But they did do a little bit at this game. They went back to a little bit more rotation with the receivers. You saw John Jackson and Munir McClain get a little bit of time on a drive. And also on the defensive line, they rotated more early in the game. After the last couple games, they kind of backed away from that. Drake Jackson played every snap on defense in the Washington game. That was not necessarily the case this week. And then lastly, Jasper said, with the coverage rolling over to Pittman, why was it Tyler Vaughn's targeting more in the first half? Tyler Vaughn's didn't have his first catch, I don't think, till late in the third quarter, if not the fourth. I think that is more because they were spreading things out and the middle was wide open. And that's where they were able to attack. You saw the play that they were not able to connect with Amon-Ra. You know, he said he was running a vertical route. You know, it turned into a post. I don't know if that was the exact.
It's a middle read route. He's reading to see what the coverage is. So if it's like if the middle field is closed, meaning there's somebody directly there, he does a different thing versus if the middle field is open and there's just two safeties playing sideline to sideline. So
there you go. And he had a guy right in front of him, and he shook the guy basically. Yeah. So he was open. Keaton wasn't really able to step into it. A little bit of pressure in his face from the player that Marquis picked up. But also there was a defensive lineman coming from his peripheral on his right side. Not a great block by Jalen McKenzie. I think that one was probably more important to keep him from stepping into that throw, because that's 7 points. That's the difference in the game, because they end up getting a field goal but not a touchdown. Yeah. Amon-Ra, you know, I asked him, I was like, was it just kind of your momentum? You see him kind of reach back for it, and it was just a tough catch. He probably should have put his hand, you know, flipped his hands. I don't know. It felt like when watching it that he didn't get a great read on the ball. Like, he didn't pick it up as quick as you want. When he turned his head, I don't know if the ball was – there wasn't a great replay from the broadcast to show whether, you know, he had turned his head and was looking for the ball, you know, where exactly the ball was in flight. It just seemed like he kind of picked it up late and didn't get a chance to make that adjustment.
I also think Amon-Ra is one of those guys who's playing through injury too. Still, and after that,
a little slow after that.
He grabbed underneath his right knee after that play, and he just looked like he was banged up a little bit. So that's just something to watch for, because he's adjusted well in practice. We've seen him make adjustments to the ball, and so that was one where that was crazy. I know, but we've seen him make crazy plays like that where he adjusts and makes that catch.
So good at making adjustments, which is why I was kind of wondering if he didn't. You know, if it was just late to pick it up, because he is one of the best I've seen at his ability to make in-flight adjustments of the ball. He still had a big game, but I think that was the thing. It was more attacking the middle with him, because they were, you know, when they were going cover 2, it was, you know, both the outside receivers were getting that, you know, getting the extra coverage. A lot of times there was the cover 3 cloud, but also him against a linebacker underneath, you like that matchup better than the outside receivers against cornerbacks.
I think that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Shotgun, you look like you have one more in your mind.
I do not. But it was a little technical for you guys, but some of you, I think, would appreciate the technical side, especially when we get Taylor in. It's fun
we got it.
Fun to have him break down stuff. He was drawing stuff up on the whiteboard earlier for us.
Yeah, I believe we're having some glitching errors on Facebook. I've been trying to work on it behind the scenes, so I'm sorry if that's happening to you guys. We'll get it fixed next time. But I think that's going to wrap it up. Oh, before we wrap it up, I wanted to give a special shout out to a security officer that works for Notre Dame. He watches Tunnel Vision apparently, and I was freezing on the sideline, and he gave me hot chocolate for free to warm me up, and it was very helpful. So thank you for watching, and thank you for the hot chocolate. I appreciate it. But that's going to wrap it up. Any final thoughts, guys, before we do? I know we had a lot to talk about, but anything burning on your mind that you just want to get in before we wrap it up?
To piggyback on what Keely said, thank you to the non-USC fans that watch us as well on this show or Instant Analysis or, you know, on the Family Feud podcast, because we had, you know, Keely and Dan both had several people come up that were Notre Dame fans.
The Notre Dame fans, I'll give them credit. They are smart. They researched the enemy. I had a lot of Notre Dame fans come up to me and say, hey, I watched your stuff. I was prepping for this week. And it was just really cool to like interact with fans that way. So shouts if you're still watching after USC played you.
And everyone that stopped us this week, because there's a ton of people that were stopping us to say hello. You know, we love seeing you guys and meeting you guys, especially if you're some of our regulars. We'd love to put a face with the names as well. So thank you guys for that. My final thought is, how do you bounce back?
Yep.
You're 3-3 now. You played well. You didn't play great. You didn't play outstanding. You played well.
Yeah.
You eliminated the penalties to the extent that was because of the referees, the way they called the game, but you eliminated the turnovers. Now, can you create some turnovers?
You got to create some turnovers on defense.
What is it? I think that the streak is now 19 games in a row where they have not won the turnover margin.
Yeah.
So if you can eliminate and give a lot of credit to Keaton Slovis. I thought he did really well with the coverages they were giving him, similar to what he saw in the BYU game at times. And they were mixing it up. I think Notre Dame probably mixed up their coverages probably more than anyone else has so far this season.
Yeah, and they were mixing up the personnel within the coverages as well, which makes it harder for the quarterback to identify exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
And Taylor was pointing out one play where Lohi Gilman is a safety for them, was playing in the middle linebacker
basically
spot.
middle linebacker role in cover 2, yeah.
And that was on Amon-Ra St. Brown's touchdown.
Yeah.
And to add on to that, my other final thought is when you run the ball, when you run it
makes everything else easier.
It opens things up because that was a play-action play. Gilman took 2 steps in and then said, oh, crap. And he went to try to cover the middle where he was supposed to be at, and Amon-Ra St. Brown already got past him. And we've seen early in games USC, whether it's a script or you're probing plays to see what the defense is doing, they're just not running the ball very often. Yeah. When you run the ball and get 7 yards on the first play of the game, why do you not run it the rest of the drive at all? Now, I know you had a great catch by Amon-Ra St. Brown. You moved the ball well, but didn't run it again. They had a quarterback scramble, but I don't count those. I count dropbacks versus design runs, and didn't have one. So, I'm still – I don't know if Graham Harrell's still feeling his way out or not, but I would still like to see them force the issue with the run early.
Yeah.
Make them make changes to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like we said, we have a great offense. We have a lot of talent on the outside. Let your talented players win the game for you. We do it sometimes. It's a lot easier when you can run the ball to then spread it to your receivers on the outside. And I think if we can get both of those things working together, we can continue to be a good offense. The key part for me is that, hey, offense isn't always going to be on. We're not always going to score points, but the defense has to be consistent, and you have to be able to rely on your defense. And your defense needs to step up. So I know, obviously, I'm
spoken like a
biased towards defense,
offensive guy,
but I'm just saying the defense has to step up. You have a fresh. I mean, I know we got some young guys, but they have to step up. You want to win. You want to have wins on the season. You have to step up as a defense, and because the offense can only score so many points.
True, very true. Let's end it on that note. Taylor, thanks so much for joining us again. I know everyone appreciated your commentary, so thank you. We appreciate you as always.
Staying with us for a while.
Yeah, you two are both talkers, and I had like a bet of like how long this would go. We went 1:45, so under 2 hours, which is probably a good thing for you two. I know you all could probably go longer, but that's gonna wrap it up. That's Taylor. That's Shotgun. I'm Keely. We'll be back on Thursday. Ryan will be back. We'll be previewing Arizona, USC's homecoming. It'll be good stuff. So stick around. But we'll see you then. Bye.
Boom. Is that the thing? Is the photo that it's